Welcome back from lunch. We are back. I don't know. Okay, we're back. In the morning session, we did a lot of things. We were able to get access to the user's library to add a photo. Before lunch, we were able to access the user's camera and take a photo. And that photo got added to our collection view cell. Also before lunch, we added persistence. So I stop my application, I run my app again, the photo persists, right? So we did a lot of things in the morning session. In the afternoon session, we have some more things to take care of. One of those is resizing the image. Because right now, the image is a bit big, right? And the bigger the size of the image, meaning this image, the pixel size of that particular image might be anywhere from 2,000 by 4,000 pixels. That's a huge image. And that image gets rendered into memory and creates a big memory footprint in the application. So the bigger the dimensions of the image, the more RAM that image will take, and the potential for your app to be very sluggish through scrolling the collection view, it could be very laggy. So we want to resize the image here, right, to some sort of smaller size that makes more sense for our device here. So we'll use the device's measurement with an aspect ratio to resize our image. Because right now the image is just too big. Too big for saving to the documents directory, too big for rendering into memory, into RAM, okay? That's one of the things we'll cover. Next, after we do resizing, we will add functionality to be able to delete an image from the collection view and persist that deletion, right? So those are the things we'll cover today. Along the way, we'll also see long press, where the user long presses on a cell and it presents some sort of action sheet for the user to delete that image. So first off, let's go to resizing the image. Any questions so far with anything we've done so this morning or anything here? So let's go to resizing the image. There's a utility function we have at the bottom of our collection view.
Actually, for dimensions, what are you referring to? Like dimensions inside like this cell that you made?
Yes, you could do the dimensions of, the actual image has dimensions too. Right. Actually, let's actually print it out to see what it looks like. So let's print it out right at, where do we have the image? Image. We have the image in here. So let's actually print out, go to your append new photo to collection, and let's print the size of the image. So original image size is, and here we'll simply say image.size. So image.size, again, is a CG size. CG stands for core graphics. So it's a CG size that has width and height. So we'll print what that looks like when we have an image. So let us run the app. I'll run it on my simulator. Actually, it doesn't really matter. I'll run it on my simulator here. Run on the simulator, select an image from your photo library, and let's see what the size is. For example, this Swift image here, or let's just use a stock image from the photo library. And so let's take a look at what the size is here. Do we see the size of that stock image? It's 4,000 pixels by 2,800. That's pretty big. That's a huge image. And that image directly correlates with the size of RAM it's needed, right? As I'm running through my collection view, every one of those images, it needs to render pixels to the collection view, right? And each of those will, the more pixels you have to draw, the more resources it will take. So this is way too big. This image is way too big. We need to resize that image, okay? So that's the image size I had, right? So we need to resize that image because that's, again, too big of an image. So we need to resize this image. So resize image. And we'll use, the size we'll use, let's get a size here. The size we'll use is from the screen of the device. UI screen, that main, that bounds, that size. We'll use that size and we'll create some sort of aspect. We'll maintain, so maintain, we will maintain the aspect ratio of the image. What does that mean? If we have a portrait, we want to maintain the portrait ratio of the image. If it's a landscape, we want to maintain the landscape ratio of the image. So if it's 4:3, we want to keep it 4:3, right? So we want to keep the aspect ratio of it. We'll use the device's size as a good size for our image there to keep the aspect ratio of it. And how are we going to resize the image? We'll use an extension on UIImage to pass it a size and pass it an image, and it will return us a new image. What does that function look like? We have it at the bottom of our view controller. If we go to the last extension we have here, that extension, if we want to read more about exactly what's happening here, there's a good article on this URL. So offline, go read on that URL. There's also a good WWDC video that talks about image or UI image. Also very important or very highly recommended to watch that video there. I would watch that video on UI image and talking about UI image and what it takes to actually render a UI image. They go deep into it. 2018, I think. 2018. Very good. It's one of the best talks I've seen in for like a WWDC talk. Like this is really technical, really good to see there. So I'll take a look at that video. It's on that link. But basically what this utility extension will do for us, it takes in an image size or some size and it returns us an image. That's all we want, right? So we pass in a size. You could pass in 600 by 600, whatever size you want. If you're making, for example, a thumbnail, you could pass in 50 by 50 or 75 by 75 here, and it returns you an image size, okay? An image, sorry. You give it a size, it returns you an image. Cool. So let us use this right in here. Sorry. Add to append function, and we are here. Okay. So we said we want to maintain the aspect ratio. To maintain the aspect ratio, we need to import AV Foundation. Let's import AV Foundation. Not music. Not only music, but yes, AV Foundation has music in it. But in AV Foundation, we want to use AV make rec. There's an AV make rec function that will maintain. We want to use AV rec function to maintain image aspect ratio. Because if you don't maintain the aspect ratio, the image could look a bit distorted or stretched out if you don't maintain that aspect ratio, okay? If you just simply resize an image, it won't keep that aspect ratio. So we need to use AV make rect, which takes a rectangle and it maintains the image ratio of that particular rectangle. Okay, so we have AV Foundation. We could go ahead and use it. We'll use it right here. We will maintain, okay. Okay, so we have AV make here, AV make rec. Okay, so AV make rec, it takes in some CG size and it takes in a CG rect. And with that, it will return us a rectangle. That rectangle maintains the ratio of whatever image we have there. So what we want is on the image, we say size of the image, and the rect we want to pass in, let's pass in CG rect CG point will pass in CG point will pass in 0. We don't care about that. And the size will pass in the size we have above. Okay. So the size is from the device, right? This size here is from the device. The aspect ratio, we're taking the image. So that same image, we want to keep the aspect ratio. So we pass in that image size, that ratio we want to keep. Whether, if it's 2,000 by 4,000, whatever resizing it will do, it will keep that aspect ratio. If vice versa, if it's 4,000 by 2,000, it will maintain that aspect ratio. So if the thing was taken in portrait, it will maintain the portrait. If it was taken in landscape, it will maintain the landscape. Okay, so now we have our rect here. Resize image. This is not exactly resize image yet. This is just the size for resizing of the image. But down here is where we actually resize image. And here we expect to get back some image. And we have our image. On our image, we have resize. On our image, we have Resize Image. We pass in a width and a height. So here we have rect dot size dot width, and we have rect dot size dot height. And that rect is coming from this rect that we got back from the AV rect. Again, AV rect is a function that maintains the aspect ratio. Say that again. Oh, sorry. Good. Thank you. Just call that resize image. Thank you. Yeah, because we have an image already. So a couple steps. One, get the size of the aspect you want to keep. This could be, by the way, it could be simply returning the size of a cell. Like somebody was asking earlier, was that you, Ahad? Right? So it could be the size of a cell. It could be the size of the device, whatever aspect you're looking for, or whatever size you're looking for. In the case of a thumbnail, it could be simply as giving a size 75 by 75 or 100 by 100. All right, so here we have our resized image. And instead of, where are we? Ooh, I think we just not broke something, but this is fine. Now we need to get, now we need to guard let image data equal to, we need to refactor a little bit since we have a different image now. Image data, resize image dot JPEG, and here 1.0, else return, and resized image data, pass in resized image data here. Okay, a bit of refactoring, nothing much here, because before we were using the actual full image, but now we're not using that full image. So we resize the data, so we need to pass in a resized data object there. Any questions about that refactoring here? Because before, back in our guard statement, if we look at our guard statement, we had this image data. This image data was the raw image size. Everybody? Everybody? So now we want to remove this because we're not using that anymore. That's all it is. We're not using that anymore. Just move that. And we're just going to be using the resize image data here. All right. So the few lines of code we have here, basically what we're trying to do is resize the image because we agreed that 4,000 by 2,800 is way too big of an image to both load in memory. We don't want to load that size of image in memory, period. You never want to do that in any application. Because the minute you have 20 of those in memory, your app will either crash or be very slow to scroll. Everybody? I'm talking about the dimension size of the image. Right now, the dimension, way too many pixels being drawn. All those pixels need to be drawn by the system, by the operating system. Each pixel needs to be drawn out. The more pixels you have, the more drawing needs to happen. Yes?
Does this affect the actual size of the image, or just how it's shown?
Not the actual size of it, but the actual size of the memory footprint of it. It will still show in the collection view as we had before.
So if it's set to someone else, is it going to be the size that we decide to?
Yes. Yes. That's a good question. Yes, it will be the size that we resize it to. So a couple of things you could do there with Chelsea's question. One, you could automatically save when the person takes a photo. You could automatically save the photo to your camera roll. So that way you could send them the original. Everybody with that question there? So Chelsea's was, since we resized it, when we say share, what image are we sharing, correct? So we're sharing the Resize image, right? But if you want to keep, like Instagram does that, right, or other apps does that, where if you take a photo, it saves it automatically to your camera roll. Everybody, right? And some apps, they do have an option to change that, right? I'm not mistaken. It should. Your app should have an option to say, hey, I don't want to save photos to my camera roll, right? Right? I think there was one app, Viber. I don't know if it's still around. But Viber used to automatically save things and there was no option to remove it or something like that. Some weird UI. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you're taking up my space on my app, on my device here. Give me an option. Always give the user an option to say, hey, I don't want to save data to the device. That's like one of the worst, man. My Google Photos has like, oh, it's just bad, it's bad. Bad. Yeah, garbage, exactly. Like every meme, every whatever they shared, it's like automatically on your phone, syncs to the cloud, everywhere. Horrible. Anyway, if you want to save things, give the user an option to say, I don't want to automatically save to the device. Okay? Yes? Okay, so we resize our image. Let us see what the size is after the fact here. So original image size is here. After the fact, what is our size here? Resized image size is resized image. So let's run it again. And what photo did we use before? Okay, we had this one. Doesn't matter. We'll just get a similar photo. So run the app again. Run the app again, and let's see what's happening here. So I'll select a photo from my simulator. I'll go over, grab one of those stock photos. This one. Okay, here. Right? So look, before we had 4,000 by 2,000, whatever. Now we have 414 by 275. We could live with that. We could have 1,000 of those. We don't care. That size is smaller. Everybody with me? And the aspect ratio, it kept the aspect ratio. If we see it, it's the same aspect ratio. Everybody? Do we see the differences? 4,000 by 2,000 is now 400 by 200.
What did you change
On top, what part exactly? In this guy? We took out the image data. We're only doing guard on image. Because now our guard on the image data is down here. Walk me through it. So line 49, is it similar to ours? Noba? Line 49, is it similar to what we have?
No.
So take out the second constant we have there. Image data, we took it out. Okay, how are we doing? We good? Are we able to see the resize image size? Keep in mind, you could play those numbers based on what you want, but now we have a better image to keep in memory and a better image to save to documents. Okay? All right, so let's keep building out our app. We did resizing, awesome.
Alex,
Yes?
does that mean it would take a smaller image and make it larger?
The pixel wouldn't work there. It would look not distorted, but it would look pixelated.
Yeah, it would look great.
On the phone, it would work okay. On a website, no.
Visually speaking, but on code, it's going to work in that direction.
Exactly. And if you're trying to, as Chelsea was asking earlier, if you want the users to be able to send like the original photo, save it to the library, but give them an option to turn it off.
Gotcha.
Right? To save to the object library, to save to the, not the object library, I'll send out the code for us because we might not have time to do it right now, but to save to photos, library, Swift, let's see, 2015. 2019, what's about that? Okay, That looks better. So I'll slide that to you. And if you want to save to the photos library, this is what you do. Antonio. I slacked out the code needed to save to the photos library. Like if you have a save image, for example, and you want to save it to the photos library, like you want to have the user themselves, right? Not the user themselves, but if you want to automatically save to the photos library, this is how you do it. So the minute they take a photo, you save that photo. Everybody with me? Because right now in our app, we resize the photo. But if you want to have the original photo, save it directly to the library, but give them an option like in the settings, for example, to change that to say do not automatically save. Cool? All right. That way you're keeping the aspect ratio and the size of the image they took. Okay? Does that answer your question? Okay. All right. So we resized, and we also saw code to save to the camera roll automatically. And let's keep going here. Next step, we want to do deleting, right? That was the question Tiffany asked before the break. So how do we delete now? Delete. So how do I delete? Right now, I could save, I could persist data, but how do I delete data? Yes, you could click on an image and go to a detailed view, but there's no reason for having like a second view controller here. So we'll try to keep everything on the same view controller. And as Android or iOS users, we are accustomed of long pressing. We expect something to happen when you long press, right? Unless I'm mistaken here. Is there anybody that doesn't automatically long press something to get more actions happening? Yes, no, maybe?
Yeah. But I have a question. Would this only work on Windows phones? Because the long press.
Long press has been around since, who knows, iOS 2 or even earlier.
What?
I mean, let's see. Real time.
In a different sense.
UI long.
Like you have a drop.
UI long press gesture recognizer. Let's see. iOS 3. Yeah, it's been around since iOS 3.
Yeah, but it's different.
I mean, developers, that's something else, like adding it maybe. Took them longer to use that as a UI that the user goes to automatically. But it's been around since the actual API. The API has been around since iOS 3. Question?
I wanted to know, if we wanted to maybe, you know how like right now if we click on an image, it automatically goes to the app. If we did want to maybe create like a preview where they can like see the image at a fuller screen.
That would be what your lab looks like.
Okay.
Right? Your lab would look something like this. The user clicks on the add button. It presents them like an Instagram UI kind of, right? Where they could add some image, right? Instagram, right? It would look something like this. Let me see. If we were to go, yeah, if we were to go to Instagram here, and then we go to add, for example, your lab is very similar to this, where if I have an image, right? Like you get an image from the picker, and here you'd have to have some text, for example. Again, very similar to your lab. You put in some text here, right? You could preview everything, but it's up to you to say, yes, go ahead and add that to my feed. Okay? The UI would be very similar in your lab. So before you automatically add it, you have to put some text in and say, yes, create.
And you have to, it'll send you to a preview.
That second view controller would have an image view with the, yes. Yep, exactly. Cool? That's your lab. And feel free to update the UI there how you want it to be. Very good. Any other questions? Good? Okay. Next step, long press, right? That's what we're after. Let's see what that looks like. So what we're gonna, that's gonna delve into some new territory. So let's go to our image cell. On our image cell, this is where we will have the long press gesture. When the user long presses on our cell, that's where we want the cell to know, hey, something got long pressed, right? But now our cell needs to talk to our view controller. Okay? Let's get through the code, and then we'll come up to the point of how do we get the cell to update the view controller. We'll come to that. But let's go through the motion of creating the gesture. So in my image cell, right above my layout subviews here, private lazy var long press gesture is of UI long press gesture recognizer. Here I'm using lazy var. It will be called when it's needed. Okay, so what do we need here? We need some sort of long press here or gesture. And this is of type UI long press gesture. And we return some gesture.
Oh, it's a lazy variable because it's not used often.
Exactly. We only call it when it's needed, right? We only create it when it's needed. Very good. That's why we have lazy there. Okay, so we have our gesture. This is not it. This is not enough to get our gesture to work. To get our gesture to work, we need to add some sort of target. Gesture.addTarget. When they use a long presses, the duration of time, I think the default is like 2 seconds or something like that. I'm sorry? You could set it, but the actual default, like how long. So here, there's some default duration of time. When that duration of time exceeds or comes to that point, it needs to call some function. I want to call some function to run some code, right? So here we need to add a target. We've seen that before. Here the target will be self, and some action will be a selector. Let's take a second here and create some action. So we will have a function. We will call it long press gesture, long press action. And we'll pass in some argument, gesture of type UI, long press gesture recognizer. For this to work with action, what do I need to do to this function? Add Objective-C, right? So this is still an Objective-C runtime API, right? The code here is still an Objective-C runtime API. What does that mean? It still works with Objective-C under the hood. So I need to explicitly say that this function itself works with the Objective-C runtime by specifying at Objective-C, like Mr. Bienvenido says here. This will allow me to write my selector here. So selector, what are we looking for? Long press, gesture, action. Great, thank you, sir. Okay, so that looks good. What else we need to do here? In my layout subviews, so let's see, set up gesture here, set up long press gesture. Recognizer, and here function gets called when long press is activated. Cool, but nothing will work yet unless we do one more thing. In our layout subviews here, I'll simply say add gesture. You could add a gesture on any view. Again, you could add a gesture on any view. I'm adding a gesture on the cell. So I'm not going to say cell.add because I'm already in the cell. I could say self.add, but I'm not going to say self because I don't need to say self here. So I'll simply say add gesture recognizer. What gesture recognizer are we adding? The one we just created here, long press gesture. So at this point, the view or the cell itself has that gesture. It will listen to gestures for long press. Okay? Let's test it out here. Let's put a print statement in here. So print long press activated. Why different names? We could probably fix that up a little bit. This is the variable name, and this is the function name. That's why I put action there. Hopefully that's a little better. Let me know if it's not, and I could fix it a little bit. Okay, so let's test this out first. Let's run the app. Any questions? Let's run the app. Long press on a cell. Long press on any cell. And now we see long press activated happens many times, right? Does it work for us all? Make sure, so a couple things we did. How many steps did we do? We did how many steps? 3 steps. So step 1, step 1, long press setup. I'll call it long press setup. So this is step 1. You have that, Chelsea? You have step 1. Step 2, we created the function. Step 2, we created the function. Step 3, we added the gesture to the view. So step 3, added gesture to view. You got all the steps? Step 1 is the variable. And again, other gestures in iOS, there's a swipe gesture, there's a pan gesture, there's a lot of gestures. And we'll introduce gestures as we introduce different topics and different use cases. Yes?
So why does it print it so many times when you press those?
We'll fix that, because that's almost a bug. Well, it depends. But we don't want to keep long pressing. We don't want to keep doing whatever logic we're doing. We want to stop it, so we'll stop it with some code.
And also, you know how get the vibration? Is that something
That's a haptic feedback, right? I'll show that. I'll show that too.
That's something that's in settings, not necessarily in code.
It's in code. It's in code. You could add it in code. Like for example, if you favorite something, you could give like a haptic feedback to the user so that they know something got saved.
Okay.
Like physically, they got a feedback.
Okay.
Cool.
Good vibration.
Yeah, maybe we do it with animations. Like when we do animations, maybe we add haptic feedback too. Cool. Okay, Chelsea, did that work for you?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's keep going here. Okay, so we want to stop. Tiffany has a good point here. Long press just keeps activating. We want to stop it the minute it got activated. We want to stop receiving notifications for long press. So what does that look like? So we'll say if gesture, right? We'll say if gesture dot state equal to began, like if this thing began, if gesture is active, basically, if gesture is active, what do we want to do? Well, if it's active, we want to set the gesture state to canceled and simply return. Okay, let's see what that looks like. If you run the code again and you long press, it should only show once. Let's see what's happening here. So long press, right? We should get only one print statement. Everybody? So now whatever logic we have on line 40 won't get activated 20 times. Right, everybody? Cool? Tiff, does that answer your question there?
Yes.
Very good. So the gesture knows if it began. If it began, then cancel it. Okay? If you lift up your hand and you click it again, it will still work, but it just won't keep activating the gesture. Everybody with me? Yes, sir?
Any reason I'm still getting 2?
Yes, there's a reason. Maybe the simulator is a bit sensitive on your mouse.
Maybe the simulator.
The mouse, like clicking the mouse, exactly. Maybe it's actually clicking twice, but it works as cool. That's like one of those things you probably want a device to test with, Christian. That's probably one of the things you want to test it on a device, because the simulator, the minute you leave, the slight millimeter of lift.
One of my devices is the same thing.
It should be, let me test it on mine to confirm here. So I'll run it on mine. One second. So I run it on mine here. How we doing? We still good? We still here? Okay. All right, so I'm here, right? My fingers are down, and it's still 1. Everybody, right? And I got Fatty's fingers.
I have two.
Same code, right? Yes, sir. Print statement is outside, right, of the if statement.
If you move
You have a return. If you move what? If you move what, Christian?
If you move it in, it's only do it once.
Okay.
Oh,
We'll come around to confirm what's happening here in your machines. Yes, sir.
So when the state becomes canceled, does that mean you're technically no longer?
Yeah, because in this particular case, the only thing we want to do is relay this long press once. Right? Not twice, not 3 times, just once. If I lift up my finger and I press it again, it will call it again. But as long as I have my finger down, it only happens once.
yeah, I have one.
And that last
Eric, does that answer your question?
that's it.
I'm sorry?
That-
You only want to activate the long press once. Why? Because we want to show an action sheet.
But what I'm asking is, if it's canceled, are we no longer technically done?
No, we're not. We're done. We're done receiving long presses for that particular one time your finger is down. For the one time your finger is down, we're not taking any more long press gestures. We activated it once and we're done. Cool? Any other questions? Okay, so we're getting closer to our goal here. Next, we want to take that action from the cell over to the view controller. Because a view cannot present an alert controller, right? Do we agree? Right? A cell cannot present an alert controller. Do we agree? Right? A cell is not a UI view controller. It's just a basic view. So now we need to tell the view controller or whoever is listening, hey, something got long pressed. How are we going to do that? Anybody? How can we relay information from the view to the view controller? Delegate, right? I heard delegate. Amini says delegate. Anybody else? Amini says create a custom delegate, her favorite topics. Anybody else? We did promise to see custom delegation today, and we'll see it again. But we'll use custom delegation here. We will use custom delegation here to make this work. What does custom delegation do? Let me talk about it real quickly here.